Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, citizens of all ages, welcome back to another edition Star Citizen 3.2.2 stuff. So, with Star Citizen 3.3 just around the bend, with PTU fast approaching, and Evocati in somewhat full effect, we can expect a whole plethora of rebalances and redos and reworks and re-this and re-that and in general. But there's one thing in particular that I really wanted to outline. That being the weapon rebalance. Now, as some or most or none of you may know, there have been quite a few times where the weapons were rebalanced, where loadouts were changed. Specifically recently, especially with 3.3, there's a whole new round of loadout changes and rebalances and item 2.0 and all that good shit. Last night, I was talking to one of my Discord members, who for the time being shall remain nameless, and he brought up a really good point. In 2.6, okay, I want you to pay attention to the footage on the screen right now, okay? I am in the Starfarer Gemini with 4 C788 combines. 4, okay? The size of the projectiles being fired are basically bowling ball size. They're like literally the size of your head. I'm firing on an Aegis Avenger, Avenger Stalker. I have hit it a multitude of times before it explodes. Now, each of those volleys had approximately 4 projectiles making impact. And it did what I would consider little to no damage. We've had a lot of issues with the ballistic weapons as of late, especially, but I feel like this goes to further outline the issues with the weapons. Now, obviously there's the question of balance, well, the statement of balance, it's really not a question. But at the same time, you need to look at the weapons, at the projectiles, what they're attached to, their size, their damage output, and most of all, their target. Now, if I had 4 50 caliber weapons, cheek-mounted weapons, if you will, and I shot at a Cessna, you know, that should tear it the fuck up. If we go back to 2.6, in my opinion, 2.6 had probably some of the best ballistic output. There was many a time where I could fly in on my Gemini or my base Starfarer, and although I could be outmaneuvered, if I could get the jump and land 1 or 2 successful volleys, it would knock out ships in accordance, you know? So if I went up against a Cutlass Black, it wouldn't knock it out in 2 shots. It would, you know, probably take 3 or 4, which I think is it's a little excessive, but again, balance. Whereas if we just look at the previous example, it took at least 4 to 6 volleys of these huge projectiles to knock out the Stalker, sorry. And I find that a little bit ridiculous, you know, considering that that ship, you know, although it is NPC, it should have been knocked out in 1 to 2 volleys. I'll say 2 for the sake of argument, just to make it more, you know, viable. Now, the thing with Ballistics, as you might be seeing, you got to also take into account not the spread, what's the word? The lag for them, because they're not energy weapons, they're not going to go as fast. I think that should be pivotal in the determination of the weapon balance. Problem being, there has been a long history of projectiles either not being registered correctly or not being registered at all. I think it was 3.1, for a large portion of either 3.1 or 3.0, projectiles were basically null and void. They were not a viable option for weapons. In fact, I remember specifically doing one of the new like satellite probe missions or whatever they are, where you have to fly somewhere like near Grimhex or something, and you gotta fire on those little destructible satellite thingamabobbers. I don't remember what they're called, those like satellite probe things. And I brought my Gemini for one of the very first ones I ever did, and I literally expended all of the ammunition that I had, all of the ballistic rounds on these satellites, and it did jack and shit, and Jack left town. Now, hopefully, with the upcoming rebalance and item/weapon 2.0, or however they're classifying it, hopefully they will dial these in better. You know, personally, I would like to see these combine weapons be more akin to what they were in 2.6, where, yeah, they fire a bit slow, not too slow, but they pack hella punch. You know, once again, this is 4 almost bowling ball sized projectiles. I think it does something like only 300 physical damage and like 600 or 700 distortion damage. But once again, I mean, for the size of these weapons, that's like the output of a Nerf weapon. Like Nerf or nothing, like Nerf guns, you know? Not Nerf in the sense of debuffing them. So, I'm hoping that they can get that balance. You know, admittedly, it is hard to balance that type of thing because everybody has a thought on how a particular weapon or set of weapons should act, should react, should function. But with these bigger ships and these bigger ordnance, you know, they need to be applicable. They need to be powerful. They need to be the size and capable for what they are. You can see here, once again, I'm going after this Avenger Stalker. A couple of my rounds, it looks like, aren't registering. So look, there's a couple of hits. There's another hit. The shields are barely being chewed away. I think that took way too long, personally. Then, oh, this is where it gets really good. When I go after the Caterpillar here, I don't know if I'm just shit at aiming, which very well could be a possibility. I am not ignoring that. But I very specifically try to line them up in accordance with the pips. And that's a whole nother thing. The pips are not accurate at the moment, okay? These projected impact points, which is what pips stand for, are anything but. There's been a very contentious debate over ESP in particular. I think they've got ESP in an okay place as of right now. I think it's a little bit too pulley, it's a little too intrusive, but that can be dialed down. That's not really my issue. My main issue is, so these shots in particular, you know, some of these, yeah, they're missing, but I feel like those should have hit right there, that previous volley, just then. Hopefully with the netcode stuff and the network bind culling and OCS, hopefully that won't impact weapons and ballistics too much. I'm a little bit worried, to be honest, but you know, if they can get ballistics nailed down, if they can get the pips dialed in, if they can get OCS up and functional, then, you know, 3.3 potentially has some great things ahead of us, or ahead in store for us. Not only that, but I'm hoping that they get the power distribution also dialed in a little bit better. There's still a multitude of ships that when I take out, I have all sorts of power draw issues, thruster issues, you know, like the Super Hornet, Constellation, the 600i. The 600i is a really big offender in that happenstance. It needs more. It needs a bigger buff. It needs better coolers. It needs better power input and output. It needs, you know, for a luxury ship, especially with the contentiousness now that the recent Phoenix has stirred up, which, oh boy, that in and of itself, that I'm not going to go there. But, I'm not going back there yet. But, you know, they're, obviously, you know, I can hear it now. In before, it's alpha, bro. In before White Knights. In before, only constant in game development is change. Man. That's well and good. But right here, you can also see, alright, when firing, when trying to aim to the right, the weapons are still firing more center line. That's another issue that I've been encountering a lot, especially with the Starfarer series. It really seems like the weapon gimbals, they're not aiming up correctly, they're not moving correctly, they are not going to the correct firing arc. So that's another thing that I really hope that they dial in and get right, because that, I cannot tell you how many times I've missed what should have been perfect shots because for some reason my weapon seemed to be forward facing instead of turned to the right or to the left or wherever I was actually aiming. The pips being severely off center is, or I'm sorry, severely inaccurate is another huge issue that I have that I really hope that they tune for 3.3. As of right now, as I'm sure a lot of you know, OCS is sporadically being tested with Evocati. I've been getting, I don't want to say contradictory because that's not the right word, but I've been getting reports of better performance but more CTDs, crash to desktops. Generally, from what I was told, it's like between 2 to 7 minutes on average before the OCS builds crash to desktop. But, and this is a huge but, I've been getting reports that the performance has been much better, which is nice. About time. Somebody was telling me just this morning, actually, that in a full server, they were getting well over 100 FPS, and they had not like superpower PC specs, but not low end either, respectable, you know, moderate PC specs. I think that's what I wanted to say, moderate. So that's great news, especially for those of us who may have potato PCs, and even better for those of us who might have absolutely ridiculously overpowered PCs. Star Citizen most certainly is the new Crisis. Hopefully, though, they can kind of dial in some of the more janky things, for lack of a better term, the more unoptimized, I don't want to say unoptimized, but for lack of a better term, the unoptimized. I have really big hopes that OCS, when and if it comes, will hopefully afford those things. I'm still very salty, though, over the bait and switch with the Constellation Phoenix. I'm not even gonna get into that. I'm like exhausted. I'm still so befuddled. But I just wanted to bring to light the Ballistics issues here, which I'm sure some, if not most of you, might be aware of. And for those of you who were not aware, you know, bring it to your attention. That way, if you do have such issues, bring them up in the issue console. Because I, for one, I'm really irritated with the way that they handled this and Evocati and the Constellation Phoenix. But that is neither here nor there. And yeah, that's really about all I have to say for right now. So I'm going to leave the video here. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, please leave a like. If you got any questions, comments, concerns, or if you want to jump in on the conversations, do so down in the comments section. We also got a Discord in the description. Specs of my computers are also in the description, so if you want to know that, bada bing, bada boom, they're right in there. If you want to play Star Citizen, I've got my star code, my referral code in the description as well. That'll give you 5,000 UEC to start. Yada yada yada, bada bing, bada boom, yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. So, other than that, that is just about everything. Like my broken record self, thank you very much for watching. All you beautiful bastards out there, you have yourselves a wonderful day, morning, evening, whenever, wherever you just so happen to be. This has been Will, signing off. Love, peace, chicken grease.